Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have an absolutely awesome figure to take a look at, and actually we've got two figures, and we have the deluxe versions of both, since you can see that we have the two bases here, as well as two different paint variants of the Nanmu Spinosaurus, and this is really awesome because it's a brand new revamped version of the Spinosaurus, a totally new sculpt for this figure. They have released a Spinosaurus in the past, the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, which is exactly what we're looking at today, but this is a newer kind of redone version. As most companies usually do, Nanmu has continued to get better and better and better as time goes on, so I guess this is an attempt to see how good they could do on the Spinosaurus now compared to how good they did before, which I actually really like the older one, but I'm very excited to see this newer one. And again, when we have two different paint variants, one is a normal kind of a Jurassic Park 3 color scheme, and the other one is actually an albino version. And what's cool is they actually have different artwork here as far as the, hold on, let me take the camera off. So as far as the artwork here on the front of the box goes, move these guys out of the way now, you can see that we have the original image here of the Nanmu Spinosaurus, but then when we go up to the albino version and that box, you can see that we actually have the same image, but it actually is the albino version. Normally when Nanmu releases stuff like this, especially when it would come to like colored images and stuff like that, you normally just have the same colored image for both different variants, and then you usually have like a different side panel or something like that, or usually actually the boxes would be kind of in like a black and white type of a color. But it's really cool to see that Nanmu went the extra mile to give us the colored versions, giving each of them their own individual box, which is super cool. And then again, we have the boxes for the bases, and the bases, you can see one is a greenish version, and the greenish version goes with the albino Spinosaurus, and you can see that there's basically nothing really going on with the back. And then we've got the version for the regular Jp3 color scheme, which has more of a brownish type of a look, and again, the same type of box. And then as far as our boxes for the dinosaurs, of course, you can see the image that we just saw. But if we turn it around without knocking everything over, we have a really cool image here on the back of the albino version of the Spinosaurus, which looks incredibly cool. And then, if we turn this one around and we take a look at the back, you can again see a really nice color image of the more JP3 style Spinosaurus. And again, it just looks phenomenal here on this box. Can't wait to see this figure now out of the box. So let's take these away, pop them open, and do just that. So straight away, we have the art cards. And what's cool is, just like with the boxes, you can see each Spinosaurus has its own individual art card, where you can see the different color changes as we have the JP3 version and then the albino version. Of course, the back is going to be the same with that beautiful kind of hand-drawn artwork, which I love, absolutely adore these sides of the card. And then we've got our first base, which looks really nice. Again, we've got that kind of crashed plane, exactly what you would see in Jurassic Park 3, but we have kind of like a greenish color scheme for the base. And then we've got your standard JP3 version, which I really quite like because we have the nice browns and everything for the base, and that kind of resembles the muddy type of a look that you see in Jurassic Park 3 right after the plane crashes and the Spinosaurus pursues them. So it really does look like that earthy area that you see that scene take place in. And then we, of course, have our Spinosaurus figures here, and there is the albino version. And boy, is that ever a looker. That thing is absolutely awesome. Such a cool idea to have an albino version of the Spinosaurus. We'll go ahead and put that on its base. I don't think it's on there perfectly currently, but we'll get it on there better soon. And then the JP3 version here as far as the color scheme goes. And I can instantly tell you that I think the coloration and the paint application of this one actually looks quite a bit nicer than their older one did. Their older one was definitely awesome, but I really love the coloration that I'm seeing on this one, especially in the face. This thing looks beautiful. So let's pop this one on the base as well, and then we'll take a look at both, if I can reposition them here, both of the Spinosaurus here together. And there we are, both looking insanely awesome on their bases, and boy, is that ever a very cool visual of two different Spinosaurus, one of which being an albino version. I could just imagine these two unleashed on Sorna, just wreaking havoc on the population there. Definitely a really cool visual with the two of them together. But I'm not going to waste any more time as we've got a lot to get through with this review, so let's jump to a closer look at both of these right now. So we will begin with the Jp3 Paint Scheme variant, and of course that's the standard version, so I think that would probably be the best one to begin our review with. But you can see how awesome the paint application is here on the face. Like, that is just beautiful. They really captured the likeness and the overall appearance of the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus's color scheme perfectly here on this newest version. And of course, that's not even speaking on how good the detail is. As you can see, there's a lot of really nice texturing, a lot of really nice movement shown here on the face of the Spinosaurus. You can see just so much going on as far as like even kind of wrinkling there in the eye socket, almost showing the movement of the eye, and then nice wrinkling back here. You can see, again, all sorts of skin wrinkles and everything as you move through the underside of the throat and everything up into the lower jaw. Just gorgeous looking skin texture as well, and it's all beautifully painted. You can see we have those really nice tones of red and kind of like red oranges almost here in the eye socket, and they're all outlined by that darker tone, almost like a dark gray or a dark brown, which is exactly how the Spinosaurus appears. And you can also see those nice light grays here in the face, which look really cool, and again, just a ton of color variation, and the entire thing has a beautiful dark wash that you can really see quite abundantly throughout the entire figure, and it absolutely makes all of the detail pop, and just the overall paint scheme just looks so much more realistic thanks to that. And you can see that we have the eye painted very nicely with a green and a black pupil. Also sports a gorgeous gloss coat. The nostrils as well are sculpted very nicely, and they're also highlighted with that darker tone. The Spinosaurus is sculpted with its mouth in an open position. There is no articulated jaw on this newest version. But you can see the detail on the inside of the mouth. If my camera would focus correctly on it, you can see the detail there on the inside of the mouth looks really nice, and we have quite a bit of different tones of color included in that area, as well as, yet again, a nice gloss coat on the inside of the mouth, just like we see on the eye, giving it that very nice, very realistic saliva-like look. But I love the tones of color they've used on it. It just looks super lifelike. And of course, when it comes to a Nanmu release, I think the teeth of the Nanmu models are probably the best out there when it comes to realism, and you can see that here as we kind of glance, I would say, over the teeth of the figure. First of all, they all genuinely look sharp. They look as realistic and lifelike as it gets, but they also have that very cool coloration to them, and I'm not sure exactly what type of material they use for the teeth, but they just look as real as it gets. They do genuinely look like real animals' teeth on the inside of the mouth, which is always so impressive to me. And they've also kind of given it like a brownish wash, it almost looks like, to make the teeth look a little bit dirty, which is also a very nice element of realism. And when we go to the inside of the mouth, look at how insanely lifelike and realistic that detail as well as the paintwork is. Boy, is that ever impressive. You can see the throat and everything back there on the Spinosaurus, and you can also see the tongue sculpted out there. And there is that kind of famous view of the Spinosaurus letting out a roar where you get a very good look at the tongue of the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3, and I can definitely say that that tongue looks exactly as it did on the original version from the film. And the teeth on the lower jaw as well all look incredible. You can also see another little area of that reddish tone up here on the tip of the lower jaw, and then we transition back again to the grays, but there's like a mixture of lighter and darker grays as well as that nice dark wash. Leading back a little further, you can see the ear of the Spinosaurus, again some nice creasing and wrinkling because the Spino has its head turned to the left and also slightly in a downward position, so you would definitely see some creasing in that area. As you move up here to the top, you start to see that very kind of rough and rugged looking, very large scaling that runs along the top of the Spinosaurus. It's beautifully painted with that nice kind of like red-orange type of a color, and you can also see again the nice dark wash applied there. You can also see that light gray leading back here, and just like it does on the Spino in Jurassic Park 3, you can see how it kind of stripes throughout, and that looks super nice, very naturally applied, which I feel like that is kind of a tough paint application to apply and have it look natural, but Nanmu absolutely nailed it here on this release. And as you move down, you can see that we get this really nice light gray for the throat, and the throat and everything is sculpted beautifully as far as like the skin texture, the throat itself, as well as some nice skin wrinkles and stuff. But you can see variations as we have like brownish tones almost, or like very dark grayish tones up here that kind of run along the Spinosaurus as well. As you move down a little further, you can see some more kind of skin reacting there. Same deal right here for, again, the movement of the arm. Nice muscle definition there in the arm. The elbow is sculpted beautifully. And there's some more really nice paint application as you lead down the arm. As you can see, kind of like some of those light stripes, even darker stripes and stuff throughout. Super nice, very subtle paint application as you move down the course of the arm and pretty much through the entire figure, honestly. And then as you lead down into the hands, you can see some nice scoots down the fingers. The hands as well look exactly as the Spinosaurus's hands look in Jurassic Park 3. You've got some beautifully sculpted nails, very nicely hit with a gloss coat so they shine and stand out beautifully. But as we let the light hit it, you can see how there is some very nice kind of cracks and crevices and detail within that area. You can also see kind of like pinkish tones in the fingers and stuff here, especially on the undersides of the hands, which looks really nice. As we lead back up here into the stomach, you can see a little bit of girth to the stomach, making the Spino look nice and well fed, which, considering how vicious that Spinosaurus was in Jurassic Park 3, I could see it eating pretty well, considering how many dinosaurs there are on Sorna. But you can again see how we have that light gray running down, striping down, again as it leads down into the front of the thigh, exactly as it does in Jurassic Park 3. Super smooth transition down from the darker tones to the lighter tones of the underside. More phenomenal skin texture and scale detail throughout. And again, you could just see so many different tones of color here. As you just kind of turn it and let the light hit it, it's really impressive how many different tones of color they've added to like the grays and stuff on the Spinosaurus. Super, super nice looking paint job. As you lead up, you can see more of those almost scoot-like scales that kind of run along the top here. They also run over the hip area here. Very nice muscle definition in the thigh. Again, so many different, very subtle variations of like grays and browns throughout the entire figure. You can almost see like some black spots and stuff in certain areas as well. And you can see more of that light gray kind of leading here in the back of the thigh, striping in with more of those darker tones in those areas. Leading down, you've got the kneecap sculpted very nicely, kind of some creasing here in the skin in the joint of the knee. Very nice big bulging calf muscle as well. And then leading down into the foot, you've got that really nice looking Spinosaurus foot sculpt with the scoots down the toes and more of that kind of pinkish tone down there in the toes, which is pretty cool to see. And then leading back up here into the tail, you can see some more creasing and everything here right behind the thigh, again showing the movement of the thigh. As we lead out the length of the tail, you can see more really nice paint application as well as some more phenomenal looking skin texture and a very nice kind of an elegant curve as it leads down, then up, and then curves back down, and we transition to a red tip for the tail. You can also see the red running along the top here as we kind of have like some ridges here leading off of the sail of the Spinosaurus. You can see the red following that area as we lead back up into the sail of the Spinosaurus. And we have a very nice colorful display up here in the sail of the Spino as we have some really nice kind of dark reds leading up and over the top of the sail. And then as we lead down, we have almost like some orangish tones or like orangish browns. Then you've got whites, you've got blues, you've got dark grays, it looks like, maybe some slight browns. There's a lot in there, but the overall design pretty much looks exactly as I recall the Spinosaurus looking in Jurassic Park 3 as well, which is very nice to see. Just an overall beautiful paint job as well as an incredible sculpt on this Spinosaurus. And if I could turn it around without knocking something over, you can get a good look at the other side of the head, which looks just as impressive and just as beautiful as the initial side did. And then as we move back here into the neck, you can kind of see like some skin stretching and stuff. We still have some creasing there, especially right around the ear area. But you can see again some more very nice detail leading back, especially since the Spino has its head turned away from us. You would definitely see quite a bit of movement in the skin. Almost a little tiny bit of like saggy skin right there, or maybe that's just the throat showing off right there in the sculpt, but it looks really good. And then as we continue to lead down, you see more of those kind of stripes leading out of that really nice gray stripe, that light gray stripe that leads down. The arm is in a different position on this side, but it's not too far off from what we see on the other side. Slightly more forward than what we see on the initial side. But again, the hand sculpt, the nails, everything looks great over here, just like it did on the initial side. We see a little more of the stomach region over here, though, because the leg is trailing here. So you've got some skin stretching off of the stomach, leading into the thigh as the leg is trailing. And again, some more really, really nice looking scale detail, skin texture throughout. and some more very nice, very naturalistic transitions of color through the entire figure. We again have that beautiful paintwork and detailing there in the sail. I also noticed that there is a nice dark wash up there in the sail as well to highlight all of that detail. You again have the hip bone as well as the nice muscle definition moving down the thigh. And man, look at how good that paintwork looks. Like, that is just so impressive. And you lead down, you again have that very nice calf muscle, again with the nice dark wash sort of highlighting all of the scales leading down into the foot. You could see the scoots down the toes. You can also see how the toes are kind of leaving the ground as the Spinosaurus takes a step. And you have the really nicely painted nails yet again. And then we lead back up into the tail, a few more creases right there behind the thigh on this side as we lead out the length of the tail. You're not really going to see too much difference over here compared to what we saw on the initial side because it's not a drastic curve or anything going on with the tail over here. And you can also see the detailing here on the underside looks very, very nice as we move along the underside, as well as that beautiful paintwork as we have some nice kind of like dry brushing that's been applied here to the underside to really highlight all of that very nice skin texture moving along here on the underside of our incredible Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. Then we've got ourselves the albino version of the Spinosaurus. Now the sculpt of this is exactly the same as the first sculpt that we had just taken a look at. The only thing different here would be the coloration, so that's all we really need to take a look at on this one. So straight away up here in the face, when my camera decides to focus on it, you can see that we have some really nice light tones. It's like a dark grayish tone, it looks like, for the body, but they very nicely dry brushed over this lighter tone, giving it that beautiful albino-like look. But they've done a really good job of adding in so many different variations of pinks. Like, you can actually see light pinks showing up just randomly throughout. You can see the pinks inside the nostrils, and also the entire eye socket is coated with a very nice pinkish tone, and even some white tones it looks like in there. And the eye itself is also painted perfectly to resemble that kind of albino-like look, and you can see that we also have a gloss coat on the eye. That albino-like look continues as we move down into the mouth, as we have more of those kind of like pinkish tones and stuff on the inside of the mouth as well, and then we reach actually more like reddish tones there, but like we have this very nice light pink for the inside of the mouth. And you can also see some light pinks, kind of like color variation of light pinks here on the tongue on the inside of the mouth of the Spinosaurus. And look, you can actually see some like light kind of yellowish browns there in the back of the throat. That is awesome looking. It looks unbelievably realistic. Like, it straight up looks like a real living, breathing animal's mouth. That is unreasonably beautiful, and you can see more of that as you move up here along the inside of the mouth. Man, Nanmu just puts so much into their models, and this thing is just like hyper realistic looking. You can see the teeth as well have that exact same very realistic look as what we had just seen on the initial Spinosaurus. But as you move down here, you start to see more of those kind of dark pinks showing up here running along the back. They're a little more visible, I think, up there than they are throughout a lot of the different areas, but you can see more of that here along the throat region of the Spinosaurus. But as you lead back, we go from that nice kind of light sort of off-white, and you start to see some variations of greens showing up, very light greens, which I feel like makes the entire Spinosaurus look so similar to some albino alligators I've seen. So they really did their homework when creating this version to make it look as realistic and as lifelike to what a real albino version of a Spinosaurus probably would look like. Coloration-wise, at least, since we know the Jp3 Spinosaurus isn't exactly how a Spinosaurus would look in real life. But you could see such really nice, really subtle transitions between the colors here throughout the entire figure. But like right here in the stomach, you can see like the whites and the greens and stuff kind of trading back and forth as far as the color variation goes, and we have that really nice wash underneath, so it really highlights all of the detail beautifully. We have a lot more of those pinks up here in the sail as well, which they've done a very good job of kind of giving the insides here of the sail that pinkish tone while continuing to still have that nice light, kind of like an off-white running through the sail as well, combining those colors perfectly. And then as you move down the arm, you can almost see like some light hints of almost blues as well, which is pretty cool. I didn't notice that before, but I am kind of picking up on it here in the light. You can see more of the pinks kind of running along the back of the arm. Very nice looking nails here. They start out with like a pink and then transition to a really nice light brown. Very different coloration than what we had seen on the Jp3 style of the Spinosaurus. So you can really see how nice the actual sculpting of the nails looks with this lighter tone of color. And you can again see that we sport that really nice gloss coat like we had seen on the nails of the other version Really, really love that tone of color on the nails. And then as you move up, you again continue to have pretty much that same type of look through the entire Spinosaurus, as we have just those variations of kind of like off-whites, pinkish tones, greens and everything, just kind of trading back and forth as you move through the entire figure. And it is just so lifelike and so realistically well done when it comes to the paintwork. You see more of that pinkish tone, and I like how they kind of highlight the tips of the toes as we transition down into the nails. Like the toes themselves are kind of like a pinkish color, and then they transition to that brown out onto the nails while still continuing to have some of those pinks in the nails themselves. It looks really, really neat. You can also see the dew claws are painted beautifully, and again, the nails also had that very nice gloss coat. But as you move up, again, you can see how nice the paintwork is as we lead out the length of the tail. You can really start to see those pinks here out on the end of the tail, and we also have a very strong amount of that pinkish tone running along the top of the tail. And then if we take a look at the opposing side, again, trying to turn it without breaking anything, man, does that ever look awesome. I really love the eye paint for this version, for the albino version. But you can see that it looks pretty much the same over here as what we had just seen on the initial side. You're not really going to see too much of a difference as far as the coloration goes. Of course, the sculpt is quite different on one side compared to the other due to the movement and the positioning of the body, but all of the paintwork looks, again, pretty much the same. It's very consistent and insanely beautiful on both sides of this albino version of the Spinosaurus. Same deal for the underside, and I expected there to be a good bit of that pinkish tone kind of shining through here on the underside of the Spino, and I was 100% correct on that assumption, because there's definitely a good bit of that light pinkish tone kind of creeping through all of the nice light whites and everything here of the underside of the Spino. So that thing is phenomenal. And then we've got the base, and you can see the base has that very nice earthy area, and again, it's painted with some nice variations of very dark kind of blacks and dark browns and lighter browns that have been dry brushed over, giving it that really nice, very muddy look like you see in the scene in Jurassic Park 3 where this exact moment takes place. You can also see that the airplane itself looks amazing as far as the actual texturing and detailing. You can just see so much damage to the airplane and so much realism when it comes to the paintwork. You've also got some scratches there where the Spinosaurus had probably taken a swipe at the airplane. And you can again see more of that insanely beautiful wreckage here as we move along and just see the pieces of the airplane all over the place here on the base. The paintwork is just super realistic for the airplane itself, as we have quite a few different variations of grays and everything, and then browns for that area, totally different. Very nice kind of like a silver coloration there for the front of the airplane, and again, so much beautiful detailing as you move through the base. You've got the footprints there of the Spinosaurus, and of course the peg to put it on. You can take a look at the opposing side. It really is the perfect base to go with the Spinosaurus. Again, beautifully recreating the scene from Jurassic Park 3. And then the underside of the base again has this very cool information down here, basically showing you again what it is in the Nanmu logo and all of that fun stuff. And then the albino version's base, pretty much the exact same thing. Sculpt-wise, it's exactly the same, but you can see that the coloration is more of like a few different variations of greens and even some light browns. I feel like there might be a little more color variation for this base over the other one. And the airplane as well is painted quite a bit differently, as it has some actually, again, a ton of different colors on it. Again, super realistic looking paintwork for the airplane. That is phenomenal looking as far as the paintwork goes on this one. I really do love the coloration of this one. Kind of just gives it that jungle-like setting for the base of the albino version. Maybe the Spino from the jungle took down an airplane at some point as well. Who really knows? But definitely looks beautiful again as far as the paint job given to this particular base over the other one. There really is a lot of different variations of greens and light browns on this base compared to the other one. I really do like this one, even though it doesn't perfectly match the terrain and coloration like the Sculpt does, but the coloration again gives it more of like that, almost like a jungle-like setting, or maybe even like a large field, like a grassy field, or even maybe a mossy area. But the other one has more of like a look to it as far as like mud and stuff, similar to the scene that we see this situation take place. But this base as well does look absolutely awesome. So all of these are incredible, and I am just so in love with all of this. And of course, to apply your Spinosaurus to the base, it's exactly as you would expect it to be. You've got a hole there in the foot to put that peg into, and you just slide the Spino down, put the feet into the footprints, and it stands beautifully. And of course, if you choose to get both of the deluxe versions, and maybe you want to have the green base with the Jp3 Spino, then you can do that, of course, because they are interchangeable. Since it is exactly the same sculpt, both figures would work on either base. That one doesn't want to go down all the way. I'll have to look at that a little bit closer when we're done the review. But actually, we're going to take this one here out of the area, and then we'll measure the albino version. So as far as a length goes on the Spinosaurus, you are looking at about 16.5 inches or 42 centimeters. And then the Spinosaurus on the base, as far as the height goes, actually to the back of the neck, you're looking at about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. And then to the top of the sail, even though you probably can't really see it too well, it's about 8.5 inches or around the 21.5 centimeter area, somewhere in that vicinity. I was a little close to the camera, so I apologize if I was a little loud there. And one thing actually before we move to comparisons about the Spinos that is really cool, if I can get this one back off of the base here. It's really on there now that I pushed it down. There we go. Of course, the Spinosaurus figures can stand freely. They do not need the base. I did want to show you that and stress that point. You don't need the bases. So if you get like a standard version, like the non-deluxe version without the bases and stuff, no issues at all with it standing. It's actually really quite stable. But I'm going to throw it back on the base here, and then we're going to go ahead and jump straight to some size comparisons. So there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovasaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Nanmu Spinosaurus figures. You can definitely see again that these Spinos are drastically larger than everything here included. And since the Spinos are so large, we're going to stick with only one Spinosaurus in here for now as far as comparisons go. But we have old meets new when it comes to the Nanmu Spinosaurus. This time around, you can see the older release of the Spino next to the newer release from Nanmu. And you can definitely see they are about the same size, I would say, except for the newer one is up on the base. So the size would be a very similar size if it were actually down off the base. So we're just going to go ahead and actually hop this one off of the base to show you that. Just because I feel like that's probably the most fair way to compare them would be off of the base. And you can see the newer one is slightly taller, I would say, compared to the older one. But you can see regardless that they are a very, very similar size. Though I will say I think Nanmu really nailed the color scheme and the tones of like red and stuff on the head on the newer one more so than the older one, and I never really noticed it before, but I really feel like the paint application of the newer one is quite a bit nicer than their older one, but both are incredibly cool. Then we have the absolutely massive and incredible Nanmu Giganotosaurus here next to the Spinosaurus, showing you that these two are a fairly similar size. The Spino is a little bit taller thanks to its sail, but the body mass department definitely goes to the Giganotosaurus, which is a good bit larger in overall body mass. Then we've got a standoff here with the Nanmu T-Rex and the Nanmu Spinosaurus next to each other to again show you not only how cool they look, kind of facing off with each other, but also again to give you a good idea of the size and the fact that they're not too far off in the size department. And then for another comparison, we've got the Nanmu Spinosaurus next to the W Dragon version of the Spinosaurus. And you can see they are a very similar size. I actually expected the W Dragon version to be a good bit larger because that one always seemed like one of the larger versions of the Spinosaurus out there. But I can definitely say they are a similar size. The W Dragon one might be just a little bit thicker, I think, than the Nanmu one. But the color scheme of the Nanmu one, I feel like, is definitely more accurate to the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3. But for another comparison, and the final comparison, we've got the other version of the W Dragon Spinosaurus here that I kind of pulled off the shelf, and the base didn't come with it, so I'm just kind of holding it here now because the base seems to be held in on the shelf somewhere. That is like something's holding on to it, I think, and I don't really want to dissect the entire shelf, but I did want to give you guys one comparison here with these two next to each other. I think if the Spino here didn't have a peg holding it up a little bit higher, they would yet again be a very, very similar size. So these brand new Nanmu Spinosaurus version 2 figures are both incredible. Definitely two of Nanmu's best and a major improvement, I would say, compared to the older one. The older one was beautiful, but I really think they nailed it on this one. The pose of the older one was pretty cool, but I actually like the pose of this one a lot more as well. I think the pose of this one just looks more Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus-like than the older one did, which I don't really know how to explain what that's supposed to mean, but to me, this looks more like something I would have seen in Jurassic Park 3 as far as the pose goes, but also the coloration is gorgeous on the JP3 style one. In my opinion, I would say this is probably the best paint job of a JP3 Spinosaurus that I've seen on this type of model. So Nanmu definitely nailed it this time around as far as the paint application. And they did do a great job last time, but I feel like they perfectly captured the tones and appearance of the Spinosaurus this time around, especially in the face. The paintwork is just so expertly done on this newest version. It is absolutely gorgeous. And if you are a Jurassic Park 3 fan, this Spinosaurus is definitely a must-have. And then we also have the Albino version, which is probably as awesome as the JP3 one because it's just so cool to see an albino version of the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, as we again have the exact same sculpt as the other one, but the albino-like appearance, and they really did a fantastic job of capturing that albino look as realistically as I think they possibly can. Again, I actually have an albino alligator at a nearby zoo, and I was just there not long ago, and I could tell you the similarities between this and that alligator at the zoo, it is off the charts. They just completely knocked this out of the park as far as the paint job goes and capturing, in my opinion, the coloration that would be on a Spinosaurus. If it were an albino, I feel like it would look exactly like this coloration-wise. Again, of course, the sculpt is based on the JP3 version, so it's not the most accurate Spinosaurus as far as what we believe Spinosaurus to look like now, but that's not what Nanmu was aiming for. They were aiming to give us some incredible Jurassic Park 3 style Spinosaurus, and they really did that. Again, I would say two of the best that I have ever seen. And you also have the really cool bases, and I think both bases are equally as beautiful. The overall appearance, sculpt, and everything perfectly replicates the terrain that we see in the scene in Jurassic Park 3 after the Spinosaurus takes the plane down and he's kind of pursuing the people. And the plane as well looks great as far as the sculpt goes and the paint goes, and the paint on both bases I think looks really good. Of course, the JP3 version, I think the tones of color on the base and everything looks perfect to what we see in the film, and then the albino version kind of has like that really cool greenish base, which again, I think I might like the coloration of the greenish base just a little bit more, even though the actual JP3 version's base is more accurate to what you see in the film. But as a whole, these are both phenomenal releases and very, very high recommendations from me. So I will include links in the description to where I purchased mine on Lana Time Shop. They shipped them immediately and they actually got here really quickly, so I highly recommend checking them out and placing an order with them to grab yourself these gorgeous Spinosaurus figures. So again, make sure you check the links in the description, go grab these fantastic Nanmu Spinos, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.